I've spent most of my adult life living off my creativity. I'm not wealthy and I haven't won any Oscars or anything, but I have supported myself as a creative. Whether you want to be a full-time videographer or if you just want to improve the look of your videos for whatever reason, understanding creative principles will enable you to be more creative when you're filmmaking with your smartphone. So why would we want to shoot video with our smartphone? Well, the thing is, to the truly creative mind, every tool is a creative opportunity. And what I'm all about is actually helping people to become more creative. It doesn't matter what phone you have, if it's an iPhone, a Samsung, an older device, a newer device. If it shoots video, you can create engaging content with it. Even this, my 10-year-old XDA smartphone, it shoots really low quality, grainy footage. But in a certain situation, you could still use it to create engaging content. Shooting video is creative. Shooting YouTube videos is creative. Shooting TikTok or Instagram, whatever it is, Twitter, Facebook, it's all creative. And so these tips that I'm going to tell you about will help you to be more creative when you're shooting video. So we're often searching online for how-to articles and videos. We're looking for answers to our questions. But what I would say to you as a creative is to make your creative process about asking questions. I would say one of the most important characteristics of a creative person is curiosity. And what I've learned is we shouldn't be in a hurry to answer questions. Rather, we become more creative if we keep asking questions. For example, what does this shot look like? What if I put the camera here? Or what if I put the camera here? What if I put it up there? Should I use a gimbal? Should I use a tripod? Should I keep it handheld? Portrait? Landscape? And the answer to all those questions is, it depends. It depends on what you're trying to say as a filmmaker, with this shot, with this scene, with the entire video. I think the biggest mistake that any new filmmaker can make is to ask questions and expect some kind of definitive answer that's kind of universal across all situations. Like, should I use a gimbal? Or even if you define that to a more specific question, like if I want smooth gliding camera shots, should I use a gimbal? Well, I can think of like 10 different ways to create smooth gliding shots. With your smartphone. You don't need a gimbal. You could put it on a skateboard. You could slide it across a table. You can use high frame rate slow motion in your hand and it would still be smooth and gliding. So it all depends on what you want to do as a filmmaker. On the other hand, if someone tells you that to get smooth gliding camera shots you need to use a gimbal, and so you just accept that as the answer, then every time you want a smooth gliding shot, you reach for your gimbal, and then actually you stop, in a way, being creative. You stop being imaginative and thinking, what other ways can I use? What other methods are there? So if you want to be more creative as a filmmaker, then keep asking questions. So try not to have one answer that you have and you apply it to all projects and all situations. So you might think, a film director, for example, is there to answer questions. People will come to him and say, what shot do you want? How do you want me to perform this scene? And that is true, but also, I mean, I've directed a feature film, I've directed 2 sci-fi series, and basically my day is about asking questions. What does it look like if we have the camera here? What does it look like if we have the camera there? If we put the light there? What if you stand by the window? What if you stand in the dark and we have a single light? What does it say about the scene? That's what you've got to be constantly asking yourself. What is going to work best for this, what I'm trying to say? So you might see tips that tell you that you should always shoot in landscape mode. And you should never shoot that way to be professional. Well, again, it's like a creative choice, isn't it? So this is a series called Throwback 89 and it was produced by a big German TV company. So it's shot on an iPhone and it's set in 1989 during the period when the Berlin Wall came down. And actually the series was submitted to our festival last year and it was one of the award winners. So obviously smartphones didn't exist in 1989. So what's going on? Well, they decided that shooting on an iPhone was the best way to communicate the story, the history of Germany during that period to a younger audience. Obviously, a big TV company could afford, high quality professional cinema cameras. So therefore, shooting on an iPhone was a creative choice. They're just purely thinking creatively. They're not thinking about what's the highest resolution. If the answer to your question as a creative is always choose the highest resolution, choose the highest quality, then you're cutting off some creative opportunity. And the makers of this series believed that by shooting on an iPhone and having it in portrait mode was the most fun and effective way to communicate their story to their target audience. So if you want the answer to the question, should I shoot landscape or should I shoot portrait? The question is, well, it depends. It depends on the story that you want to tell. Probably most of the time you will shoot like this because that's the shape of our TVs. That's the shape of the cinema screen. As creatives, we also have to adapt and adjust to current trends. So the most important thing is that you think about it and you don't just have a set answer for every question. Every project will have different questions and different answers. That is the process of creativity. That's how we are creative. That's the fun of it. There are infinite ways to answer every question, and you should enjoy that and explore it.
When you're communicating something via the medium of video, everything usually has a beginning, middle, and end, unless you literally have a whole video of one still frame. Otherwise, as things change through the video, you're creating some kind of beginning, middle, and end. Now, this is true not only for the video as a whole, but for each individual shot too. Now, you can be shooting with the highest quality iPhone or Samsung device, but my video shot with my old XDA phone is going to be more engaging than yours if I care more about the structure than you do. That's right, structure wins, because it's a video structure that makes it engaging. And like I say, every shot has a beginning, middle, and end. That means every shot has a structure. And so my tip for you is to start thinking about the structure of every shot you capture. A simple tip to get you started adding structure to your shots is to think about where your shot starts, what happens in the middle of the shot, and where it ends. For example, in this shot inside a church, I framed the beginning of the shot, counted to 5, now I tilted the camera up, counted to 5 again, and then hit stop. Because often when we're shooting video, we just hit record, immediately move the camera, and then as soon as we reach the final framing, we hit stop. Now, if you do this because you know exactly what you want from the shot and you don't want to pause on the beginning and end shots, then fine, because you're thinking about structure and you've made a creative choice. Like I say, there's no rules. But if you did this because you didn't really think about it, then you're not making a creative choice. In a recent video I made about overcoming the fear of being bad at filmmaking, I put together a series of shots to communicate the story I wanted to tell. And so I spent some time thinking about each shot and how they would edit together. For example, here I'm retrieving a box hidden away in the corner of the loft. So first I wanted this shot of me removing some other items so I could reach this box. And by the way, I placed a few extra items there to make the shot more interesting, because then the shot would have more of a beginning, middle, and end. If there was just one item to move, the middle of this shot would have been very quick, but I felt the story needed this box to be buried beneath lots of items, which tells the story that this box, a box which represents my past in the story, has been forgotten about. In reality, I only just placed this box here in the last few weeks. So you see, as a filmmaker and a storyteller, I'm creating an illusion to tell my story. And that involves thinking about the beginning, middle, and end. But that was just one shot. I grabbed a shot with the camera behind the box as I pulled the box out. Now this is a reveal shot. I revealed myself framed by the window as I pull the box away from the camera. You see, this shot also has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the beginning is with the box filling the frame. The middle is the box moving, and the end is the sort of reveal of me pulling the box. By the way, when I was shooting this, I also used my Tiffen Black Pro Mist diffusion filter to get the sunlight to spread around me, which gives the shot a more emotional, sort of romantic look. The next shot I chose to shoot from the side, so I know this is going to edit with the other shots of me uncovering and removing the box. And then I got this shot from above, and I'm presuming people watching will now be intrigued to know what's in the box. And this is like one of the oldest tricks in filmmaking and storytelling to keep people gripped. Anyway, this shot from above will edit with the other shots. And in terms of structure, I am moving the story towards opening this box. Now, I could have simply started with this overhead shot and opened the box, but I stretched this out because I wanted to communicate to watchers the idea of digging into the past. I wanted it to be something of a struggle and not just flipping open a box. So I communicated the idea of a little bit of a struggle by creating this structure, a beginning, a middle and an end. And like I say, each shot has a beginning, middle and end, as does the whole sequence. And this sequence is just one sequence in a series of sequences that go to creating a whole 10-minute video, which again has a beginning, a middle and an end. The thing is, it's actually a lot of fun to do this, and this is why I love filmmaking. This is why I do it, shooting and editing to create a story.
So once you've got into the habit of asking questions as part of your creative process, and also in thinking of things in terms of structure, beginning, middle and end, then you can start to think about consistency. So if you're watching a documentary, you might have noticed certain styles of camera work. Some shots will be handheld and the camera moves a little bit. So let's just say I'm shooting a documentary and the scene I'm shooting is live. It's actual people in a situation. It's not set up. I'm not interviewing them. So imagine it's live, and so I'm filming them and I'm keeping the camera alive and I'm just moving it. Just little movements. Also, the camera operator might be zooming in and out just slightly. You've probably seen this technique, or changing the focus. Everything is live, it feels live, it doesn't feel locked down. And that's one style of shot. And this makes the audience feel like they are there witnessing this scene. It makes it feel more live to the audience. It's not just because the camera operator is holding it and that's just, you can't help it. It's actually a style, so the camera operator will deliberately be adding little movements. You could just stand there like completely still, couldn't you? Never change the focus, never change the zoom. But the camera operator deliberately adds little movements, adjustments. So just a little movements like this, up and down, just slightly following the action, zooming in and out a touch, maybe here and there. And that's all done deliberately to create a style. But not every shot is handheld. For example, when characters in the documentary are being interviewed, quite often the camera is then put on a tripod, it's then locked down, focus is locked, zoom is, nothing changes. This is a different type of style of shot. And so within the documentary you have these two styles. We know that this is that they've had questions put to them, and so this shot gives us a feeling of stability, of solidity. So it's contrasts with the more fluid shots. Once they've made this decision about having moving shots for the live sequences and fixed lockdown shots for the interview sequences, then they will stick to those rules consistently throughout the series or throughout the documentary, however long it is. If it's 10 minutes, 2 hours, they'll stick to those rules. So this creates a consistency throughout the film, and it creates a sort of language of the film. No matter what kind of films you're making, if they are holiday videos or short films or short documentaries, travel videos, cooking videos, whatever it is, you can think about this kind of consistency too. So that's just two examples. The live field documentary, which is also, by the way, used in fiction films. It came from a documentary way of filming, and then it made its way to fiction films. Why would someone choose to shoot a fiction film where everything is set up, all the actors are reading lines, and the camera and the crew all know exactly what's happening in every scene? Why would they want to shoot in a way that mimics a documentary? Well, the answer is because they want to make it feel more like a documentary. They want to make it feel more like this is happening, that it's just happening spontaneously and it's not premeditated. As soon as you start to fix the camera, even on a gimbal, or you have it on an arm and you have these kind of graceful cinematic shots, the audience knows this is premeditated. They know, even if they don't know consciously, unconsciously, it feels like this is the hand of the filmmaker showing us, guiding us through the story in a premeditated way. We know it's planned. And so to have a more documentary style way of shooting in your fiction film gives it a sense that it wasn't planned, that this is all just happening, that everything is spontaneous. So once you've decided the rules for this particular project, this isn't going to be the rules for you as a filmmaker for the rest of your life. This is simply the rules that you've created for your particular project to give it consistency from the beginning to the middle and to the end. And that way it ties the whole thing together. I mean, certainly if you're just starting out as a filmmaker, I'd suggest that you try all kinds of different styles. You experiment a lot, as much as you can. And obviously, but then as you get more experienced as a filmmaker, quite often your style starts to narrow down. You start to find ways that you like to film. If you do follow a list of do's and don'ts, make sure to think about how those do's and don'ts define the project that you're working on. By taking a more creative approach to filmmaking, the process becomes more of a journey of discovery. Not only will you find out more about filmmaking, but you'll also find out more about yourself, and you'll find out more about the world around you. I think that often we want to define things because we want to lock things down. We want a definitive answer to our questions. We want to know what is going to make my video better. And people even ask me, they say, should I shoot this or should I shoot that? And I say, well, it depends what you want to do. Tell me your story. What are you trying to create? What do you want the audience to feel? But I think that we can make a mistake when we want these kind of definitive answers to questions that we have as creatives. There's a danger that our creative process just becomes ticking boxes, like shot in 4K, box ticked. Shot with an anamorphic lens flare, box ticked. Use a gimbal, tick. Use a tripod, tick. This is right, this is wrong. So now I know what to do as a filmmaker. But actually, being creative is about being uncertain and about exploring that uncertainty. So don't be afraid of it, actually embrace the uncertainty. Because when we are uncertain, we actually start to think more deeply about what we're doing and we ask more questions. Whereas when we are following rules, we stop asking questions, we stop thinking, and we just follow. But as I said at the start, true creativity is about being curious. So get out there and start discovering. So that's it for this video. If you found it useful and rewarding, entertaining in any way, please like and subscribe now and get the bell thing ticked. Tick that box, that's the one box that you need to tick, is the bell icon. And I'll see you in the next video.